Hello friends, and welcome back to our channel. So as you are all aware of, we had started with the chapter the digestive system. So we shall continue with the large intestine in today's lecture. So this is the overview of the different parts of digestive system. As you are all familiar with, we have covered most of the parts of it. Okay, so the last part of the GI tract, that is the large intestine. So we are going to cover the anatomy, histology and the functions of the large intestine in this particular lecture. Okay, so coming to the functions of large intestine. Okay, large intestine, which is the terminal portion of the GI tract. So the last part of the GI tract comprises of the large intestine, and the functions of large intestine includes the completion of the absorption process which is started in the small intestine. We have seen that most of the digestion and the absorption takes place in the small intestine, correct? So for absorption there are a lot of structural adaptations which are seen in the small intestine. So this absorption is completed in the large intestine, so it will continue in the large intestine also. Next function is the production of certain vitamins. The formation of feces also takes place, that is a waste, the solid waste from the body. It is also formed in the large intestine, and the important function, that is expulsion of these feces from the body. So removal of this solid waste in the form of feces, because most of the nutrients are absorbed now. Okay, so whatever remains in the large intestine, that is called as the feces, which is the solid waste. So it is removed out of the body through the large intestine. Coming to the anatomy of the large intestine, this is the large intestine. Okay, so this is the last part of the small intestine, that is ileum. Okay, so part of ileum is shown over here, and from at the end of ileum there is a sphincter, as we have seen, ileocecal sphincter or ileocecal valve, which guards the opening of small intestine into the large intestine. So from here begins the large intestine, and it's a tube-like structure which continues till the anus, which is the last part of the opening of the large intestine towards the exterior. Okay, so length, if you consider, of the large intestine, it is about 1.5 meters. So as compared to the small intestine, which is round about 3 meters in length. Okay, so large intestine is quite shorter. So again the area of absorption is smaller. Okay, because the length is shorter as compared to small intestine. It is almost a half. The diameter, however, it is quite big. Okay, it is 6.5 centimeter in diameter, and it extends from the ileum. So it begins at the ileum and it continues in the form of a tube-like structure, and it ends at the anus. Okay. Now this large intestine, it is attached to the posterior abdominal wall by the peritoneum. Okay, it's a double layer of the peritoneum called as mesocolon. As we have seen that there are different folds of the peritoneum, right? So one of which was mesocolon. So this mesocolon, it attaches the large intestine to the posterior abdominal wall. Okay. Now structurally this large intestine, it can be divided into 4 major parts. That is, the first part, which begins at the ileum, at the end of the ileum, that part is called as cecum, which is the first part of the large intestine. Just like small intestine is divided into 3 parts: duodenum, jejunum and ileum. Similarly here, large intestine can also be divided into 4 parts. Okay, and these include the cecum, the first part, which is cecum. The second part is called as colon, this one, up to here. The third part is called as the rectum, and the last portion of the rectum called as the anal canal. Okay, so these are the 4 major regions into which the large intestine is divided into. Okay, now we'll discuss all the anatomical features one by one. Okay, now as we have seen earlier, the opening of the ileum into the large intestine, it is guarded by a sphincter called as ileocecal sphincter, or it is also called as ileocecal valve. Okay, so this sphincter will guard this opening and it will regulate the movement of the food material from the ileum into the large intestine. Okay, now hanging inferior to this ileocecal valve, here is the ileocecal valve. So just inferior to that is hanging a small portion known as cecum. Okay, so it's a small pouch like structure which is hanging just inferior to this opening, which is round about 6 cm in length. And attached to this cecum is a twisted coiled tube called as appendix, or it is also called as vermiform appendix. Now why it is called vermiform appendix is because vermiform means a worm shaped structure. It is a worm shaped structure, and appendix means appendage. As you are all aware of appendix, it is actually does not have any function as such in the body. Okay, sometimes the swelling of the appendix or the inflammation of the appendix may take place, so as a result of which sometimes it might have to be removed operatively. Okay, so it's a small portion which is round about 8 cm in length, which is hanging from this cecum, extended from this cecum, small coiled tube like structure which does not have any function as such. It also has a separate mesentery of its own. This is the one that is known as mesoappendix. So this mesoappendix connects the vermiform appendix with the ileum. So it joins with the peritoneum of the ileum, mesentery of the ileum. Both are joined together by this mesoappendix. Okay. Then the cecum will open into the next part of the large intestine, which is called as the colon. Now colon means food passage. Okay, so colon is a passage meant for movement of the food. That's why it was called as colon. Okay, and this is basically divided again into different parts, okay, based on its location and based on its shape. Okay, now this first particular part is called as ascending colon. This is the one. The first portion is ascending colon. The next part is the transverse colon. The third part is known as the descending colon, and the fourth part is known as the sigmoid colon. This is the one. Okay. Now out of these, the ascending and the descending colon both are retroperitoneal in nature. Okay. What is retroperitoneal? It is something which lies posterior to the peritoneum. So it has the peritoneum covered only on one side, right? It is not entirely covered with the peritoneum. Whereas transverse colon and sigmoid colon, these are covered by the peritoneum throughout. Okay, so they are not retroperitoneal in nature. Okay, now let us see the different parts of the colon. Now ascending colon, as the name implies, this is the part. Why it is known as ascending colon? Because it is ascending from this cecum. It is moving in the upward direction, right? So that's why this was called as ascending colon. So it's a first part of the colon which is extending upwards. Okay, so it is ascending on the right hand side of the abdomen, and it reaches the inferior surface of the liver. Somewhere over here lies your liver. Okay, so just when it reaches the inferior portion of the liver, it makes a turn. It turns abruptly. A sharp turn is taken by this colon, and that particular part is known as right colic flexure, or it is also known as hepatic flexure. So it makes a turn towards the left hand side. Okay. Now further it will continue across the abdomen in the form of transverse colon. So it travels towards the left hand side, and that particular portion is called as the transverse colon. Okay, now once this transverse colon reaches the inferior end of the spleen over here, somewhere over here, so it will take a turn again, and that particular turn, the downward turn, it is called as the left colic flexure, or it is also known as splenic flexure, because it is located just near to the spleen. That's why it is known as splenic flexure. So it's just making a turn, and it is moving downwards now. It passes inferiorly in the form of descending colon. Why it is known as descending colon? Because it is traveling downwards. It is descending downwards. That's why this portion is called as descending colon. Okay, and the last part is called as sigmoid colon. Okay, sigma means S-shaped. Okay, if you can see, the shape is somewhat S-shaped, right? That's why it is called as sigmoid colon. Okay, so it will project midway towards the midline. Okay, and it terminates as the rectum. Okay, so this is the last part. So it will terminate as a rectum. So next part of the large intestine will begin at this particular level. That is about at the level of third sacral vertebra. Can you recall the sacrum? 5 fused bones of the vertebral column. So just near the third sacral vertebra ends the sigmoid colon and begins the rectum, which is the last part. So terminal 20 centimeters of the GI tract comprises of the rectum, this portion, which lies just anterior to the sacrum and the coccyx, which are the fused bones of your vertebral column, that last part of your vertebral column, inferior part. 5 fused bones, and the coccyx comprises of 4 fused bones. Okay, so just anterior to the, just in front of the sacrum and coccyx lies the rectum, which is the last 20 centimeter of the large intestine. And the terminal 2 to 3 centimeters of the rectum, it is called as the anal canal, which is the last part. Okay, so this is rectum, and the last 2 to 3 centimeter comprises of the anal canal. Okay, so it's a tube-like structure. It's called as anal canal. Now, within this anal canal, the mucosa, it is arranged in the form of longitudinal folds, as you can see over here. Okay, so there are longitudinal folds, right, of the mucous membrane. So these particular longitudinal folds, these are called as anal columns. Okay, the longitudinal folds within the anal canal, these are called as anal columns. Okay, so these basically contains the network of the arteries and the veins. Okay, and this rectum and the anal canal, it opens in towards the exterior in the form of an opening called as the anus, which is a terminal last part of the GI tract. Okay, and this anus, it contains an sphincter which is known as internal anal sphincter, and another sphincter known as the external anal sphincter. There are 2 sphincters which are guarding the opening of anus towards the exterior. As you can see over here, this is located interiorly. That's why it is called as internal anal sphincter. Okay. Now this particular sphincter is involuntary in nature. Now why it is involuntary? That's because it comprises of the smooth muscles. And as you are all aware of, smooth muscles are involuntary in nature, right? They are not under your control. Whereas the external anal sphincter, it is voluntary in nature because it comprises of the skeletal muscle. Okay, so these sphincters, what is the role of these sphincters? It keeps the anus closed except while elimination of the feces. Only during the passage of the feces, during the defecation reflex, except that the anus is kept closed by these sphincters, these two sphincters. Okay, so defecation, which is the act of passage of the feces, that is under voluntary control because of the presence of these external anal sphincters. So you can control the defecation to certain extent, right, if you want. Okay. Then coming to the histology of the large intestine. Okay, so as we are all aware of, basically the wall of the GI tract, it comprises of the 4 basic layers. So the same 4 basic layers are present in the wall of large intestine also. That is the mucosa, submucosa, muscularis, and the outermost is the serosa. So towards the lumen of the large intestine is present the mucosa. Okay. So now let us see one by one what they are comprised of. So there are certain differences in between the types of cells which are present over here in the epithelium of the large intestine. When you basically compare it with the small intestine, which we have covered in the last lecture, we have seen that there are circular folds, there are villi, which are finger-like projections into the lumen. Okay, so such type of villi are not seen in the large intestine, right? Okay, so as you can see, the mucosa, it is comprised of the same layers, simple columnar epithelium, a layer of single layer of epithelial tissue is present, epithelial cells is present. Next layer is the lamina propria. This is the one which is comprised of the areolar connective tissue, and the third layer is the muscularis mucosae, which is comprised of the smooth muscles. Now coming to the epithelium. Okay. Now the epithelium, a single layer of columnar epithelial cells are present. Okay. Now these epithelial cells, they are made up of 2 types, absorptive and the goblet cells. Okay, now these absorptive cells, what is the main function? We have seen that these type of cells are present in the small intestine also, right? So absorptive cells, what is the function? The main function is absorption of the water over here. And the goblet cells, what is the function? It is to secrete the mucus. So it will help in lubricating the contents which are passing into the colon. Okay, so both of these absorptive and goblet cells are also located in a small depressions, long straight tubular structures called as the intestinal glands, or these are also known as crypts of Liberkon. So these intestinal glands were also located in the small intestine, but you can see that the depth of these intestinal glands, it is quite more as compared to the small intestine. So also the Penneth cells or enteroendocrine cells are absent over here. So these intestinal glands which are present in the large intestine, these are lined only by these 2 types of cells, absorptive cells and the goblet cells. So main function is to produce the mucus and absorption of the water. Okay. Then the lamina propria, as you can see that it comprises of the blood vessels, it has the branch of the lymphatic capillaries also. Okay, plus there are lymphatic tissues also. Solitary lymphatic nodules are present over here. Okay, Peyer's patches are absent. Aggregated lymphatic tissues are absent over here. Only solitary lymphatic nodules are present in the lamina propria, and these may even extend through the muscularis mucosae into the up to the submucosa also. Okay. Now as we have seen the structural features of the large intestine, these are not adopted for the maximum absorption, right? Just like in case of small intestine. So large intestine do not have these structural features which increase the surface area. There are no circular folds. There are no villi, the finger-like projections, right? There are just simple layer of the mucosa which is present. Only thing is there is presence of intestinal glands. No villi are present over here. However, microvilli are present because there are absorptive cells over here. We have seen that there are two types of cells, epithelial cells, absorptive cells and the goblet cells. So absorptive cells, they of course have the microvilli on their apical membrane. So obviously the microvilli will increase the surface area to certain extent so that more and more absorption of water will take place. However, when you compare the absorptive area of the large intestine with that of the small intestine, it is much smaller because there is absence of circular folds and there is absence of the villi. Only microvilli are present which will increase the surface area to certain extent. Okay, so this is to do with the mucosa. Coming to the next layer, that is submucosa, which is comprised of the areolar connective tissue through which the blood vessels and the lymphatic vessels will be entering the mucosa. Then the third layer is the muscularis. Of course, it will be comprised of the smooth muscles, and these smooth muscles are arranged in two fashion. Circular, there are circularly placed smooth muscles. The internal layer, as you can see, this is the length of the large intestine. So you can see the internal layer, the cells are circularly placed, okay, this way. Whereas the outer layer, it comprises of the longitudinal smooth muscles. They are placed along the length of the large intestine. Now, unlike the other parts of the GI tract, in the large intestine, these longitudinal muscles of the muscularis mucosae, these are thickened at certain areas. So they form three bands of smooth muscles. So these are known as taeniae coli. As you can see over here, there is a band of thickened longitudinal muscles here, over here, and even over here. Okay, so these taeniae coli, these run along most of the length of the large intestine, as you can see. Okay, and these are separated by portions of the less or no longitudinal muscles. There are certain areas wherein there is no longitudinal muscles or very less longitudinal muscles are present. Now these bands of longitudinal smooth muscles, these will pull the colon and they will put them into small pouch like structures. As you can see throughout, it's not smooth unlike the small intestine. You can see the surface is smooth, but that is not the case with the large intestine. So it will be put into several small pouches called as haustra. So this will give the large intestine a puckered appearance. Puckered means something which has folds and wrinkles on the surface. Okay, so it will give the intestine, the large intestine or the colon specifically, a puckered appearance. Okay, and apart from this lies a single layer of circular muscle in between these taeniae coli. Okay, so this is to do with the muscularis. Then the last layer, that is the serosa of the large intestine. So this serosa, it is actually the part of the visceral peritoneum, as we have seen, and as we have seen in the introduction that the ascending and the descending colon, these are retroperitoneal in nature, that is they are covered with the serosa only anteriorly from the front side. Whereas the sigmoid colon and the transverse colon, these are entirely covered with the visceral peritoneum. Okay. Now these there are small pouches of these visceral peritoneum which are filled with fat, and these are just attached to these Taenia coli. As you can see over here, yellow colored structure, small structure. So these are fat filled pouches of this peritoneum which is covering the large intestine, and these fat filled pouches, these are known as omental appendices, or these are also called as fatty appendices, okay, which are attached to the Taenia coli along with the throughout the length of the large intestine. Okay. So this is to do with the anatomy, histology and the physiology of the large intestine, which is the last part of the GI tract. This is the reference. Thank you for watching.